Okay, first question, sign of hands. How many people knew that was about Finland before they, okay, how many of you folks are from Finland? Yeah, okay. Uh, we do have one, don't we? How many students in the audience? Raise your hands. How many want to move to Finland? Faculty? How many faculty want to move to Finland? Okay. One of the interesting things about Finland is that not only does it have what's recognized as one of the best educational systems in the world, they've done this in short order. They went from an agrarian culture to an industrialized culture with one of the best standards of living and high economic growth. And when I brought this up the other day to a colleague of mine, one of the things he had mentioned was, well, that's because they all speak the same language and they all look alike. That was sort of my reaction. And so I had to respond politely, and it was a Jew. So I should say, look at the back. I said, well, if all we had to do in the United States is just to segregate our population by race and the language they speak, do you think we would have solved the problem? And of course not. It's not based on the color of your skin and the language you speak. Now, the reason I'm showing, I showed Finland, is that like most countries in the world, they're all seeking some type of educational reform. And educational reform is based on the fact that our economy, not just our economy, but economies around the world, are based on having to reform the educational system. Countries are faced with a rapidly changing world, a globally connected world, and knowledge that is changing at an incredible rate. The problem with that most countries have, in the United States included, they're trying to prepare for the future using methods of the past. And that's why we continue to fail. What we've come up with in the United States, we've come up with clever slogans. No child left behind. If you leave everybody behind, you essentially have left no one behind. Clever strategy. I'm glad you like my jokes. A lot of faculty don't appreciate my humor. The other issue is the notion, and it's come with No Child Left Behind, that we can fix education by standardized testing. We are going to test our way to the top. And we know how well that's done in the last 10 years. It has not moved the needle one iota. So we can't test our way to the top either. Extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. The education in the United States, and for most countries around the world, have extrinsic motivation. What that means is, I'm going to teach you a class, and your motivation for learning is whether or not you want to get an A, a B, a C, a D, an F, or I'm going to call your mother. That does not inspire learning, but that's how our learning system is organized. Students today, well, let me go back. Part of extrinsic motivation, it did work when I was a kid. Stone tablets, wheel was just invented. 50 years ago, so I'll date myself a little bit, is when I grew up, and there was no calculators, let alone personal computers. TV, I think we had 2 channels. Fox was something that we hunted. Well, I could see hunting them now too. Black and white TV. Heck, we didn't have a space program then. Knowledge was limited. Knowledge expansion was very limited. If I needed to know something, I'd have to look it up. Or more importantly, schools were based on memorization, especially when you get into college. You couldn't rely on your iPhone or Android. I don't want to be biased. So as you moved into a profession, when you were in college, it was essential that you memorized a lot of the facts and figures in your discipline because you had to be able to recall them on the spot. And I know when I was talking to Dr. Cook the other day, I brought up the Golgi apparatus example. Now, it sounds like I'm smart that I know what a Golgi apparatus is. Actually, I just know the words. They're stuck in my head, and I can't get them out. And so I was in a biology class, and I remember I was cell biology, and the words I thought were kind of funny. And because my humor, they're stuck in my head because they're funny, but I really don't know what they mean. But nowadays, with you folks in the audience with your iPads, and if I said, can you, within 1 or 2 minutes, tell me what a Golgi apparatus is, and I told you how to spell it, you could tell me really easy. You could recall that information with ease. So that's why back in earlier times, knowledge-based curriculum worked. Nowadays, it doesn't make any sense because you have knowledge at your fingertips. So nowadays with our students, it's less what you know and more about what you do with what you know. How you find out what a solution is, how you define a problem. That's what today's education has to be based on, not on accumulating knowledge. Students nowadays are motivated much more so than the grades. They want to be internally motivated. They want to know what they want to be motivated by passion. An example is you folks here today. You're here, you're motivated to be here because you're passionate about the topic. You're passionate about peace, applied peace, that's why you're here. But if I told you at the end of my little session here that I'm going to give you all a quiz and I'm going to give you a grade and it's going to appear on your transcript, show of hands, how many would have shown up? Thank you. I'll talk to your mom about your allowance later. but you get the point. Education has to move from something that's extrinsic, which provides no passion, doesn't provide the student the reason of why they have to learn. And what we do know is when students are on, the current students, the ones that are connected, the net generation students, they want to be engaged. They want to be able to address their passion. They want to have meaning to what they're learning. It gives them purpose. And unlike when in the dark ages when I was growing up, students want to be able to make a difference while they're here, while they're on campus. They want to work on service learning. They want to work out in the communities. And as an institution, we have to be able to provide those vehicles for education. So like I mentioned, the current system is knowledge-based. And in all intents and purposes, we have to move away from a knowledge-based curriculum to one that's based on creativity. We have to develop a curriculum, an educational environment that will encourage kids not to think in a linear manner, because the world doesn't work that way. The real world with real problems have multiple solutions, multiple variables. And in the real world, like we are right now, creativity is where we're going to solve our problems. Anyway, some of the things that our students look for, they want to work in groups, they want to work collaboratively, and they want to work in real world problems while they're here in college. They don't want to wait till they leave. So we have to develop a system where creativity is prized. So I want to go to my last and final slide. This is a figure that came from Tony Wagner's book called Creating Innovators. And it's a very good treatment on what we need to be thinking about in terms of re-engineering higher education. And what he says is that we need to create a population of innovators to face a lot of the problems you've talked about today. That will entail having them develop a certain expertise. It'll involve having to develop certain critical thinking skills, and above all, have an environment that will motivate them to be self-directed learners. And it has to be in an environment, which is the university, and the university has to be an environment that prizes teamwork, that's interdisciplinary, that's problem solving, that has intrinsic incentives, exploration, play, and empowerment. Those things are hard to come by. I can give you a few examples. Olin College in Massachusetts, it's an engineering college, is based on those principles. Media Lab in MIT, been around for 20 years. It has no set curriculum. It's guided by the students' interest in their project. And across the bay at D School, Stanford, is another really good example about design, looking at real problems and real solutions. And there's also good examples at high schools that help prepare students to enter in that type of a world. And a good example is High Tech High. If anybody heard of High Tech High, but High Tech High started in 2000, is now grown to 9 schools associated with High Tech High. 3,500 students are in High Tech High. Of those 3,500 students, 100% of them go on to college. That's a heck of a track record. And it's by using non-standard pedagogy. They don't teach to the test, but they have to take the standardized tests, and they score really high. So it debunks the myth that you need to teach to the test. And I want to just real briefly talk about what we're doing here. One thing that's really important to me that I think is imperative in a college education is having students understand the need to give back to the community. I think we've lost our way since the Reagan administration, where we've tried to transform a college education from a public good into a private good. And a public education, by its very nature, is a public good. And what should be built into our curriculum is having the students experience giving back to the community, helping out those that are less fortunate than they are. My son, he named his son Leonidas for a variety of reasons, but the name was associated for helping out those who cannot defend themselves. And those type of lessons need to be learned while you're in college. So one of the first things that I did is I talked with Dr. Robert Phelps, who ran our honors program. And honors programs in general, I'm not too crazy about, because I think it misses out on a chance to really engage some of your brighter students in solving real world issues. Here, they would have to take harder courses in getting a faculty mentor. What I asked them to do was to engage them in a service learning project. And what they did in their first year was, as a group, they came to a decision that they wanted to take part in a Habitat for Humanity project. And I can tell you they learned more by picking up a hammer than they could have learned by picking up a book. And they'll learn what it means to be low income, what it means to need a helping hand. And hopefully those are the lessons they'll take with them for the rest of their lives. The other thing that I did was I encouraged, it began with IREE, and that stood for Instructional Research Equipment Request Program. The reason that came about is we've put about $6 million into equipment and instruments into studios and labs across the campus. And although I haven't really told anybody, well, I'm telling you now, part of the reason was, professors wanted to have newer stuff in their classroom. The reason for me personally was, coming from a low-income family myself, first-generation college graduate, and a lot of our students are first-generation low-income. When you come from those environments, you begin to expect not a whole lot. And a lot of urban serving institutions don't provide a lot to the students they serve. I wanted to create an environment when our students would come to campus, they would have the best stuff, so they can begin to expect the best stuff, that they can have higher hopes than what they've been used to. So that was the rationale of putting all that equipment in the classrooms. We have a lot of people, our music program is wonderful, but we have pianos that couldn't be tuned. But now we have kids coming out of the Jackson Triangle that are playing on Steinways. And hopefully that inspires them for more hope and to move on in life. We've also, with the Hayward Promise neighborhoods, we've got community partners with the Department of Education. The Obama administration wanted to develop a program of community service similar to what they did in Harlem Children's Zone. And we were only one of 5 grants that were approved nationwide, and it's a $25 million grant. And they were skeptical of Hayward Promised Neighborhoods, and especially skeptical of CSU East Bay, because Washington had a dim view of universities thinking beyond their own box, the typical ivory tower. And we were the running joke in Washington, D.C. that we could not deliver. But when we brought Washington, D.C. here, and they saw our students, and they saw our faculty, and saw how we actually organized and engaged the community, and actually we're seeing real change, we've become the role model of how to engage the community and how we engage our students and engage our faculty in solving a real issue. And we have other things that can chew your ear off, but time is up, and I will turn it over to you. Oh, one last thing, if I don't forget, a quote that I like from Robert Kennedy. It was, there are those that think about things and ask why. I dream about things that never were and ask why not. So the problems we have in education, or the problems you discussed today, we should be thinking about solutions that don't exist and proceed and try to get them. So that's it. Thank you.